The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Nick Fantasy. Sign up with the code SGPN, get 50% bonus up to $1,000. What's the Edge Boost? A reminder, you can up to $750 per month on your sports gaming transactions. Go to edgeboost.bet, promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, the leader in data-driven picks and props. Try it out for free for a week by going to sports.com, RITHMM. Once again, the Sports Gambling Podcast.com, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Sunday afternoon, roughly 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time on February 9th. I'm your host, always, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Super Bowl's in about an hour, so decided to help you kill some time waiting for the game to do some previews for upcoming ATP events. We have 3 events coming up this week. We have Buenos Aires, the first clay event of the year. We have Delray Beach, and we have Marseille. So 3 separate 250 is going to break down each of them with outrights. Now, I do want to point out we have no quarter odds for any of these events. So we're going to get right into the outrights for the actual winner of the event. Before we do that, I do want to recap what happened in the last episode, both for the actual lock and dog picks and for the match. For this case, matches, though, because we didn't have time to break down Dallas yesterday. We were waiting for lines. I know that the Chapo match ended up ending relatively early, actually, in Dallas, because he ended up beating Paul in straight sets. However, we waited for hours. There was no line dropped, and I eventually got tired of waiting. So we had to punt the Dallas final episode. As a result, going to break down or recap the 2 matches we saw on Sunday. Getting into the lock and dog picks first, though. Nice overall sweep for us. Our third sweep in the last 4 episodes had Alcaraz team total over 12.5 at -130. They got there easily, as Alcaraz did win in 3 sets outright, as he ended up once again flying over the team total. For the dog, though, nice win as we had the over 2.5 sets. Alcaraz did win the first set, then eventually fell behind early in the second set, and de Minaur held from that point forward. And then on top of that, we saw Alcaraz win the third. So overall, a very good episode for us. Ended up sweeping once again for the 3rd time in 4 episodes. Can't complain. On top of that, we also won an outright with Alcaraz to win Rotterdam at +195. Now, we also had de Minaur to win the same event at 10-1. So a little bit salty, I guess, that we ended up winning the smaller outright. But I can't complain. If you wanted to hedge midway through, you could have, because it went to a deciding set. Point is, though, a nice win for the lock and dog, as we ended up doubling down on the over, basically. And it got there as Alcaraz did win a 3-set, I'd say, entertaining match. Not really a war, because de Minaur kind of got destroyed in that 3rd set. But still, point is, Alcaraz got the job done en route to a nice overall sweep for us. So looking at the actual matches that we ended up seeing on Sunday, for the actual Rotterdam match, once again, Alcaraz was up early, then eventually ended up losing the 2nd set, then dominated the 3rd as he got the break eventually in the 2-3 game to go up a break, and then eventually held out and broke again to win the match. So nice win for Alcaraz, his first ever indoor hardcourt title. We know Alcaraz has been once again successful in his career, and he definitely is one of the best players in the world. Looked like it again in Rotterdam. He did something that most great players can do, which is win a tournament despite not playing their best tennis. And Alcaraz was dropping sets to Zanchel, to Hurkacz, and to de Minaur. Didn't matter, though, as eventually he did end up winning the whole thing. As for de Minaur, really no shame in his effort. Ended up winning every match, entering the final in straight sets. Had an easy path, but still, nonetheless, not his problem. Then face off against Alcaraz, gave him a run for it for a bit, but Alcaraz is too good, and he ended up beating him in 3. So overall, that was the, I'd say, most competitive match of the day. You had the match in Dallas, which was between Chapo and Ruud. Chapo won in straight sets, beating Ruud 7-6, 6-3. First set was very competitive, no breaks. Then Chapo immediately got a break in the 2nd set and held from that point forward. So you ended up seeing Chapo really dominate on the serve. I didn't break down the actual match for the final because we didn't have time to break it down in the morning. But I did like Chapo in the matchup. There's a reason why Ruud is ranked top 10 in the world and Chapo is ranked outside the top 50. And Chapo was still -150 to win the match. It was because his game translated well to the courts in Dallas. His serve was great, and he only faced 1 break point in the entire match. Ruud, we know, with the deep return position, tends to struggle against guys that come to the net and guys that are not afraid to put points away early. That's what Chapo does. Thought Chapo would win relatively easily. I didn't expect a breaker in there, but I'm not surprised Ruud lost in straight sets. Ruud had a pretty good run as he was able to beat Munar in 3, beat Nishioka, courtesy of a retirement, beat Momo, and ended up beating Duckworth in 3. So he didn't exactly look that great in the event. Beating Duckworth as a last-second replacement in 3 is not that impressive. Ended up beating Momo, who was making his comeback attempt after being injured a couple times. Nishioka, he was losing to, and then Nishioka got injured, hurt his shoulder, and he eventually retired. So pretty favorable outcome for him there. Then Munar, we know, is more of a clay guy, but he's been good on hardcore lately, so props to Munar. Either way, the point is Ruud did struggle and had to win a marathon 3-setter against him in the semis, and then he ended up losing to Shapo. Shapo, though, looked great. He kicked Manovic in 3, beat Fritz in 3, beat Makic, beat Paul in straight sets. He was definitely the better player over the course of the event, and he looked like it in the final. Nice job by Shapo, winning another title. You might remember he won a title at the end of last year, and he did so once again. So it seems like Shapo, at least hardcore indoor Shapo, might be back. So that's a good sign. He's fun to watch when he's on point, and it does seem like he's getting back to his former self again. Happy to see. A very fun player, and it's nice to see him looking sharp once again in tournaments and winning a 500 event. So good for Shapo. We'll keep an eye out for him in future, I'd say, hardcore events over the course of the year. Now, before we get into the actual preview of the 3 events, I want to remember once again that you can't show support for the show by like subscribing on YouTube. And a reminder, we also have the show available on Spotify or Apple for audio-only format, so you can leave a rating and review there. So once again, you can help the show grow by liking the video, subscribing to the channel. I think we're at 760 right now. Once again, trying to get to 800 by the end of the month. Hopefully, you can help us do so by just spreading word of mouth about the podcast or even just potentially retweeting all the tweets I have about the show. So hopefully, you can help us grow either on Spotify or Apple or YouTube in general. And a reminder, you'd also check out the merch store for some good SGPN merch. We have autographed Tennis Game Podcast merch with sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs. Also have this helmet over here. If you don't want to get a small helmet, you can definitely get it there. So check out the merch store. A lot of great shows on the network, a lot of great merchandise, all affordable, and recommend getting yourself something there. Plus, reminder for the SGPN promo, unfortunately, all of the Super Bowl squares are officially taken, so that contest is over. However, football might be over in a couple hours, but the NASCAR card is officially back. NASCAR, you're looking at to actually bet on. You can head over to sportsgambling.com/Daytona to sign up today for a new contest, a free Daytona 500 contest to be entered to win $100 cold hard cash and $100 SGPN gift card, plus a random bonus prize. That's sportsgambling.com/Daytona to sign up today. Plus, a reminder, check out the actual NASCAR gambling podcast we have on the network. So getting into the 3 events on the card. We're going to start off with Buenos Aires. Truth is, the actual chronological order really does not matter. A lot of these events start at the same time tomorrow. So we're going to get into the alphabetical order approach instead. As a result, the first clay event of the year, Buenos Aires. Now, the recent winners, you have Diaz Acosta, who won in a pretty surprising Cinderella run, beating Jari in the final last year. Alcaraz beat Nori the year prior. Ruud ended up beating Schwartzman, and Schwartzman beat Cerundolo. I know Schwartzman is well past his prime, but the reason why I'm bringing up his name, this is actually going to be his final event. He's officially retiring at the end of the Argentina Open. So if you do want to fade Schwartzman one more time, if you want to watch him play, takes on Jari in the first round. So I wanted to mention Schwartzman. He had a very good career for a guy that's drastically undersized, and he has been successful over the course of his entire career. Not many people can say that they beat Nadal on clay in his prime, and Schwartzman was able to do that. But point is, Schwartzman might have one match left in his career, so I wanted to give him his flowers. He's had a great career, especially once again for a guy that small, and unfortunately things have kind of unraveled for him over the last couple of years. As for us, we may or may not have profited on his demise, we'll be honest here, but either way, point is, Schwartzman was a fun player to watch in his prime, and he has a chance to maybe give the fans one or two more great shows. I don't expect him to do much in the event, to be fully honest with you, but either way, point is maybe he can surprise people and beat Jari in the match in the first round. We'll see, but hopefully, once again, Schwartzman puts on a good show for the fans over there in Buenos Aires. Now, for the actual outrights, once again, we have no quarter odds for any of the outrights, so we're just going to go right into the outrights to win the actual event. Now, you do have a couple of solid players on clay in this event. Starting off with the actual first favorite, you have Zverev as the massive favorite at plus 180. You have Rune at 650, fresh off the destruction that he suffered against Martinez on hard court. Still not sure exactly what happened there. Rune is going to try to change his luck on clay. Fonseca is at 8-1. You have Musetti at 9-1, Jari at 10-1. You have Cerundolo at 14-1, Baez at 16-1, Tabilo 16-1, Diaz Acosta defending champion at 16-1, Echeverry 16-1, De Geer at 20-1. You have Baena 33-1, Darderi 33-1, Munar 33-1. If you want to keep going down, you know, Martinez at 33-1, Seabold Wilds at 40-1, Lajovic is 40-1. That's basically it. So once again, the thing about clay events, you can expect absolute pandemonium. You can get a Cinderella run from anybody that can win the entire event. There are a lot of clay specialists here And once again, a reminder for clay purposes, a lot of clay guys do well here because serving becomes a little, I'd say, less important during the clay slate than the hard court and the grass. So a lot of guys who would normally struggle on hard court and grass because of their bad serve suddenly have a chance. That's what makes clay tennis so entertaining. You have a lot of long rallies, a lot of potential drama with breaks of serve, and because of that, you can expect to see some chaos in Buenos Aires in this event. Now, for the recent winners of Buenos Aires, getting into the past year, I already said before, you have Diaz Acosta, who was, for example, a Cinderella winner from last year. So you have Alcaraz, who won the year prior. So you can kind of see a blend. Ruud won the year prior. So you have a couple of, once again, favorites that have won and a long shot who won last year. So you can see kind of a mixed bag of what to expect for the upcoming event. Now, for the outrights for this event, though, already mentioned the odds. I think I have to go with Zverev at plus 180. Yes, he has not really played since the Australian Open, did make it to the final and lost, but we know he made the French Open final last year. He's a very good clay player. You can argue that clay is his best surface. You can make an argument one way or another between clay and hard court, but Zverev is a very solid player. So I do think you're looking at a spot where he's worthy of being a big favorite. For the actual draw, though, you have him with a bye in the first round, then Baena or Lajovic in the second round. Fun first-round match, though, between those two guys, two veteran clay guys. But the point is, you have Cerundolo, who's a head case, and Darderi on the other end of that quarter. So Zverev does have a pretty favorable draw to make it into the semis. Cerundolo can be dangerous if he's on with the forehand and the fact that he's, of course, going to have the home fans behind him being in Argentina. But Zverev, I think, is the much better player in that quarter in particular. I think he's in a good spot to make it into the semis. So I am going to go with Zverev to actually make it out of the quarter and beyond. Give me Zverev at plus 180. I agree with the price. Defending French Open finalist, he's healthy. That's been a concern in the past. I think he'll look sharp here. Give me Zverev at plus 180. Now, for his actual half, pretty tough potential battle in the semis against the guy I'm going to take in the second section. I am going to go with Musetti at 9-1. Now, a couple reasons for this. First reason, we saw him beat Zverev in the Olympics last year on clay. We also saw him win the bronze medal on clay. He's had a great overall, I'd say, start to his young career. A lot younger than you think, but he's been very solid on clay. Clay is his best surface, despite the solid run in Wimbledon last year. We saw him lose to Cerundolo in a pretty painful final that he could have won in Umag. So he's won a couple clay titles. He won in Hamburg a couple of years ago. He's definitely solid on clay, and I do think that his game translates well to the clay here in Buenos Aires. But his overall draw for his quarter, I think, is favorable. Has a bye, then Mutet or Munar. Think he'll beat either one of those guys. Then you're probably looking at Jari or Martinez maybe in the quarters. Think he'll beat either one of them. Jari did make the finals last year, so that could be a pretty tough battle. But I think that Musetti would win. Then Musetti would face off against Zverev in the semis, but I said before, he beat Zverev on clay last year in the Olympics, so I think that he can handle it. 9-1, though, I think is a pretty good price, especially when you factor in who's priced ahead of him. Rune is at 650. I'm not taking him. Once again, he's a head case. We saw him lose to Martinez in an indoor hard court match right before this event. I'm not taking Rune. I understand the draw can be decent. I'll get into his draw in a second. But at 650, I can't take him. I don't trust him enough to take him at that price. Fonseca at 8-1. Now, Fonseca is a very good young player. We know that he made a good run in the next-gen finals, winning the whole thing. We saw him look good in the U.S. Open when he was, not the U.S. Open, sorry, in the Australian Open when he was able to beat, once again, Rublev in the first round in straight sets. However, it's an insane price at 8-1 for a guy with no ATP career titles, no titles, and he hasn't played a clay match in a while, I believe, and now suddenly he's 8-1. I think that's a very disrespectful price to Musetti, who's proven time and time again that he is definitely solid enough to win on clay. Once again, he won the bronze medal in the Olympics, and he's got longer odds than a teenager who's never won an ATP title in his entire life. I think Fonseca is a fun player. I like him a lot, but I think that price is insanely short, too short. I'm not taking it. And you factor in the actual draw, he has Echeverry in the first round. Not the easiest first-round draw. Echeverry, I know, has not won an ATP title in his career, but he's still Argentinian, so he does have the home crowd advantage, and you're looking at Echeverry being a solid ATP player. Not the easiest draw for Fonseca, and he would face off against Rune in the quarterfinals. So that's why I'm skipping on Rune. and Fonseca. Same quarter, not a fan of the draw. Think that it's a pretty tough path for both guys. So give me Rune and Fonseca to potentially kill each other, but I'll pass on both. Give me Musetti at 9-1. I see a question, though, in the comments section. I see Adrian asking if I ever actually played the sport in high school and college. I did intramurals for college. However, Wisconsin, as far as I know, did not carry a tennis team because it's winter about 10 months out of the year. So they didn't have a tennis team. I probably wouldn't have qualified anyway. But the point is, I don't exactly play that much. I play recreationally with some friends, did some intramural stuff. But for the most part, I mostly follow. My family has been very involved in tennis over the years, mostly my grandfather, who passed away, who was actually a professional tennis coach. So he ended up teaching a couple of people in Miami over the years. And because of that, he also kind of forced my mom and her siblings to play. So that kind of got passed down to me. So my grandfather on my mom's side is mainly the reason why I follow so much tennis. It's why I've followed it to such a degree. And because of that, that has kind of been the reason why I've always been a fan of following tennis and why I say, talk about it in depth. Gambling came later, but the point is I've always been a big fan of tennis because of my grandfather. But for the actual playing aspect, I don't play that much, to be honest. I'm not that good, I'll be honest, but at least I follow it because I do love the sport itself. So that's going to answer your question there. I follow a lot, but I don't exactly play, mostly because of my family. Anyway, moving on to the last outright for the event. This one will be a long shot, at least a somewhat long shot. I mentioned before that Argentinians do pretty well here in the event. This guy's not really been good lately, but he's proven time and time again he's always a threat to win a clay title. Give me Baez at 16-1. Now, Baez, I think, has a pretty good draw for the actual field here. Baez is not in the Musetti and Zverev half, so I am going to give myself a shot to potentially get an easy draw if Fonseca and Rune kill each other. There could be some openings here in the bottom half, and I do think the third quarter is actually pretty manageable. So Baez has Ugo Carabelli in the first round, then Diaz Acosta or Seaboth Wild, so I think that could be a pretty competitive battle, but Baez has proven that he's won multiple clay titles on the ATP level, but I do trust his overall game if he ends up getting into a war or two. He has Tabilo as the main guy in his section. Tabilo hasn't exactly been that great lately, so I think that could be a pretty vulnerable guy with the bye in that quarter. But I mostly wanted to target the third quarter. Said before, Fonseca and Rune might kill each other. You also have Navone in that section, who can be dangerous. So I do think you're looking at Baez. I wanted to go after the third quarter. I like his odds at 16-1. Clay guy, who's won multiple titles here, does perform well in Argentina. He won in Cordoba a couple years ago, for example. So give me Baez at 16-1. I know his form has not been that great. I think he made the semis in a challenger event, I'd say about a week ago. Lost to Delian, I think, in the semis. Point is, though, when his game is on, I think that 16-1 is pretty large for a clay specialist that we know can get the job done. He won a 500 event in Rio last year on clay. I like his game. Give me 16-1 for that price. So once again, my outrights for the Buenos Aires event, I'm going to go with Zverev at 180. I'll go with Musetti at 9-1, and I'll go with Baez at 16-1. No real long shots there. I think Baez is good enough. I do think with Zverev and Musetti, a couple of really good clay players. The long shots, I think, might make a deep run in that bottom half, but I don't see either of them beating Musetti or Zverev. So based on that, I am going to go with Baez, the only guy that I could picture in the bottom half. That's a pretty good price, in my opinion, beating Zverev or Musetti in a clay match. I think Baez actually went to 5 sets against Zverev in the French Open years ago. So Baez has given Zverev some problems on clay, but I think that 16-1 is a good price. That'll be my longest shot for the actual event. Now, before we get into the outrights in Delray and the outrights in Marseille, I want to remember once again that we are brought to you by Edge Boost, because Edge Boost can help you avoid the hassle of having your card denied at the sportsbook, DFS site, sweepstakes site, and racetrack and casino. You can also earn a bunch of cash back, $750 per month in cashback rewards by using the Edge Boost card. Your money's also safe as the card is FDIC insured. Best part is that there are no credit checks and it's completely free. Sign up today. Use the promo code SGPN to get instant Tier 2 status and better cashback rewards. Once again, use the link, sportscam.com/ once again, just to get into the actual link once again, it's edgeboost.bet, promo code SGPN, edgeboost.bet, promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by MyBookie. A reminder that MyBookie's been around with SGPN since the very beginning, and MyBookie is the place where you want to bet on every sport, because you can bet on every sport, plus props in every game, and once again, a live dealer casino. They also have a bunch of locations that might not be available for other legals, but you can use it on MyBookie. So once again, if you want to play some bets and your state is not legalized for sports betting, you can still use it. So once again, you could also use my bookie from a ton of locations, so keep that in mind. Plus easy deposits and lightning fast payouts with crypto. You could also use the link for a great sign-up deal. Head to mybookie.ag, promo code SGPN for 100% deposit match, and that's up to $1,000 and a $10 casino chip. That's mybookie.ag, promo code SGPN for a deposit match of 100%, and that's up to $1,000 and a $10 casino chip. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Cam Podcast. Just finished going through the outrights in Buenos Aires. Now it's time to move on to Delray. Now, for this one, this might end up being named the Fritz Invitational. If Fritz wins it again, he's back-to-back champion. But looking at the recent winners, Fritz beat Paul last year in straight sets, and Fritz beat Kekmanovic, in 3 sets the year prior. Nori beat Opelka. You saw Hurkacz beat Korda. Opelka beat Nishioka. Now, one common theme here over the years, yes, there are a ton of events going on at the same time. So there are a lot of Americans that kind of inflate the actual bracket, but at least one American has reached the final in 9 of the last 10 years. So if you want to go for a guy to make a deep run, you want to target an American. I know Fritz fit that criteria each of the last 2 years. I mean, so did Paul for last year, but still. Point is, if you want to back an American, there tends to be at least one in the final. Keep that in mind, so choose wisely. Now, for the outright picks for the actual event, now for the odds, we're going to look at the favorite. It is Fritz at 185. You have Mickelson at 9-1. Kekmanovic, former runner-up. I think he lost in the first match last year, though, at 12-1. You have Giron at 12-1. Opelka 14-1. Tien off of the phenomenal Australian Open run. He is playing again. He's at 14-1. Nori's at 16-1. Arnaldi's 18-1, I mean. Nishikori's 18-1. Nakashima's 18-1. Fekina 18-1. Nishioka 20-1. Vukic 20-1. Diallo 30-1. You kind of get the point. So for the actual outrights here, first things first, give me the favorite. I got to go Fritz. I faded Fritz in the last event, and that worked out kinda in Dallas. He lost early. However, he lost to Shapo, who won the entire thing, and we did not have Shapo. So it really didn't matter, but point is we did not take Fritz last week. I like him a lot more in Delray here. He's very comfortable in this environment, back-to-back champion. Think plus 190 is a good price for the actual draw in the event. Very favorable draw. Has a bye, then Bu or Hijikata, then I'd say either Nishikori or Fekina. Very favorable draw into the semis, which I like. Now, as a potential opponent in the semis would either be Nakashima, Opelka, Tien, or Arnaldi. The point is, I think that Fritz should be a decent favorite against any of those guys. I think that Fritz is a good blend of solid rallier from the baseline and a very good serve. I think it's a very good path for Fritz. I'll go with Fritz at plus 190 as my first pick in this event. Now, for the other options, looking at the other favorites here, you're looking at Mickelson at 9-1. I'm not going to take him. I think his draw is decent, and I think his path is okay. However, the problem I have is I still don't think Mickelson is fully there to a certain degree where he's good enough to win a title. I think he needs to work on the serve a bit more. And the question is, can I see him beating Fritz in a potential 3-set match here? I do not. I think the overall half is not bad. He might make it into the final. But if I can't picture you beating Fritz, I'm not going to pick it to win the event. I think that Mickelson is fine. He can get upset, though, because the serve is not great. Think he can, once again, look sharp at times, but he might lose Kekmanovic to somebody in the bottom half, and I see Fritz beating him comfortably in a potential final. So I'll skip on Mickelson there at 9-1. Want the price on him a bit higher, so I'm going to pass there. However, I am going to go with Kekmanovic at 12-1. I think that he has a pretty good draw as well, and you're looking at his overall form. He's been playing well so far in 2025. Now, he has Gojo in the first round, has been kind of injured and I'd say underwhelming for the last couple of months. We saw him make a decent run in the U.S. Open about 2 years ago, but since then, he hasn't really done anything. So I think that Kekmanovic has a decent path there in the first round. Then he has Nishioka or Vukic. I would normally take Nishioka to make a deep run here. However, he just retired in the last tournament against Ruud with a shoulder issue. Don't want to back him. He might withdraw from the event, so I thought that it wasn't really worth taking. If he was fully healthy, I would take Nishioka. However, when you just retire a couple days ago in an event, I'm not picking to win the whole thing. Think that he's going to be somewhat damaged goods for the event. So I'll pass on him there. Think he might lose to Vukic or withdraw, but I'm going to pass there on Nishioka. I would normally take him. I think it's a good path for him. Made the final a couple years ago, but after the injury he just suffered, I can't take him. There's not enough trust there for me to back him at a decent price. However, I am going to go with once Kekmanovic, who I think has a decent draw. Would face off against Giron in the quarters, but I think that either guy, him or Giron, could beat Mickelson in a potential, once again, semifinal matchup. So I am going to go with Kecmanovic at 12-1, and I'm also going to go with the other guy I just mentioned, Giron, at 12-1. So one of them will lose in the quarterfinals, but I do think you're looking at a spot where Giron and Kecmanovic have good games that translate well to the courts here. Giron, I know, had to withdraw from the last fight with illness. I think he's fully healthy now. But Giron, I think, is a solid hardcourt player. We saw him make the final in Dallas last year. He's pulled off some upsets as well over the last year or two. Think he's underrated on hardcourt. I think that he can, once again, look sharp. I said before, an American has done well here, making the final in 9 of the last 10 years. I think Giron could be that guy in the bottom half of the draw. But once again, I think Giron or Kecmanovic should, in my opinion, beat Mickelson or anybody in that third quarter. So that being the case, I like the overall price. Mickelson at 9-1, though, I think is too cheap. I think Kecmanovic and Giron at 12-1 are better value plays, in my opinion. So I'll go with Fritz at 190. I have to. Two-time champion, fresh off the loss to Shapo, which actually aged pretty well, because Shapo killed everybody in that event, and Fritz lost in a final set breaker. So Fritz didn't play badly. Shapo just played very well. But I think that it's a pretty weak draw. I think that a lot of good players are playing in either Marseille or in Buenos Aires. So it's a pretty weak field. Give me Fritz at 190. Give me Giron at 12-1, and give me Kecmanovic at 12-1. Moving on to the next tournament. I'm going to look at Marseille. So once again, no actual quarter odds for this one. For the recent winners, though, you have Humbert, who won the last iteration of the event, beating Dimitrov. Hurkacz beat Bonzi the year prior. Rublev beat Felix, and you saw Medvedev beat Herbert. Now, for the actual outrights here, you have Medvedev as the favorite after getting upset by Bellucci in the last event in Rotterdam. Medvedev, those plus 240. You have Hurkacz at 5-1, Humbert at 6-1. You have Khachanov at 8-1. You have Perricard at 9-1. Korda at 11-1, who's back after the Australian Open. Struff is at 12-1. Sonego's at 25-1. Bublik's 25-1. Zhang's 30-1. Borges is 30-1. Bonzi, former finalist, is 30-1 as well. That's basically it. So for the actual, once again, outrights for this one, starting off with the favorite, Medvedev at 240. Said before, he won the title a couple years ago. However, the question is, can I actually trust Medvedev at all? The answer is hell no. That's the answer. I feel like Medvedev could have an easy draw, which he does. I think Perricard can make it interesting if he's able to serve past him. But the point is, I can't trust Medvedev. I think he's drastically underpriced in a lot of events because it's a weak field. He's a great hardcore player based on reputation. Recently, though, not so much. We have not seen him win a title in over a year. So that being the case, I think Medvedev is constantly fool's gold at this point. I understand if he pieces it together, he should win. But you lose to Bellucci, you lose to Tien, you go to a 5-setter against a random wildcard entry in the first round of the Australian Open. I'm going to pass on Medvedev. I feel like he's, once again, not worth the gamble based on his erratic form lately. I can't trust him. I think that he's got a good path and all, but I feel like it's a waste of money. If you backed him for the last year and a half, you've lost every single time you've backed him in an outright market. I can't take him. I think 240 is a little bit too short for the current form. I'll pass there. Now, for the actual questions here, I see Brian asking how I split up the outrights for an event. It really comes down to how confident I am in the actual favorite. I usually take a favorite, and then I'll throw in a couple of longer shots. Usually it depends on my confidence level. For the actual favorites, for Alcaraz, for example, I did have a unit on Alcaraz. I felt like he was going to get past Felix and eventually get past everybody in his path. However, I was also pretty high on Dimonauer. I faded Medvedev entirely. So personally, I had a couple of outrights which were flyers with, for example, Perricard, which got refunded. And I had another long shot with Leheshka for about 0.2, give or take. For Dimonauer, it depends if I like the path a lot, so it does vary. It's not an exact science. But for Dimonauer, for example, I had 0.5 on the outright for Dimonauer. I thought his path was easy, and I didn't trust Medvedev at all. So I was willing to gamble a bit more on the 10-1. Alcaraz, though, I was a full unit on. Thought that he was the best player here by a decent amount in terms of talent. I thought that maybe the draw would keep him a bit vulnerable, but I thought he'd get by, and I wasn't exactly sure what the current form of Hurkacz was. But normally, for these super long shots at around, like, I'll say 15-1 or higher, I'll go 0.25. If it's in the range of about, I'd say 7-1 to 14-1, I'll usually be somewhere in the realm of 0.33 to 0.5. And then for example, the favorites, I'll usually go from 0.75 to like 1 unit. Sometimes I'll lay. If there's a favorite that I think is going to win, I'll lay like 1.25 maybe. But that's usually how I break it down. There is a certain, I'd say, differential between the units wagered and the actual odds I'm getting. But if there is a massive favorite, if there's like Sinner or Alcaraz in an event, I'll probably just lay a unit on either guy because normally they'll make a deep run. That's kind of where I'm at. But for the other guys, De Minaur, for example, a 10-1 onward, I would normally do somewhere between 0.33 and 0.5. I went 0.5 because he made the final last year, and I thought the bottom half of the draw was pretty weak. So that's kind of why I went on the upper end of that risk for De Minaur in that event. But once again, it's not an exact science. It depends on the draw and depends how confident you are personally, or I am in this case, on the path and the current form of the player. So that's kind of how I break it down based on units. Anyway, I see Leonard agreeing with me that Medvedev isn't worth it. I agree. I think it's a waste. So I'll skip over Medvedev for that one. However, I do think there are a couple of options in the bottom half of the draw. If you are scared of Medvedev, he does have Khachanov in his half, Pericard in his actual quarter. So a couple of potential upset candidates, even Korda in the quarter, or I should say in the half. So there are a couple of good ralliers there that I can see beating Medvedev. Maybe Pericard serves well in his home country in Marseille and gets the job done against Medvedev, or maybe Khachanov or Korda upset him in a potential marathon. Once you lose to Bellucci in a 3-set marathon on hard court, you can lose to anybody, whether it involves Korda or whether it involves Khachanov. So pass on the top half. Instead, I'll go with a couple of limited options in the bottom half that I think have good paths. So I'll start off with the other favorites in the event. I am going to take Hurkacz as my first choice at 5-1. He looked very good in Rotterdam. I know he lost to Alcaraz. He probably should have won in straight sets. Punted that first set. 4-1 love 40, and he lost 6-4. So he lost 5 straight games, which was embarrassing. But he went to 3 sets. He made it close, and I think that he proved he's back health-wise to 100%. Hurkacz throwing into hard court is dangerous against anybody. I mentioned before, he is a former champion, as he ended up beating Bonzi a couple years ago. I think it's a great path here in the current quarter that he's in. He has Zhang or Hallis in his first match after the bye. Zhang's been a mess lately. Hallis has not really been that good either. He has Borges, Wawrinka, or Bergs. Bergs has been good lately. We saw him make a final, lost to Monfils earlier this year. But you're looking at Hurkacz, who should be able to get by into the semis, and you're looking at the other quarter here. You have Humbert, defending champion, Bublik or Gasquet after the bye. Sure, yeah, I'm not scared of either of those guys. You have Bonzi. I think Puig got seriously injured. He might retire, so they're going to have to fill in somebody to replace him. Shame for Puig, though. He was in a challenger final, and I think he completely destroyed his Achilles. He might be done for his entire career at this point. So hopefully he recovers, but point is, Puig is not going to be in the event. But Bonzi is in the bottom quarter, and you have Sonego and the Zandschulp. I think Humbert and Hurkacz should face off against each other in the quarters. Point is, though, pretty favorable draw for both guys. Give me Hurkacz at 5-1 and give me Humbert at 6-1. I think that both those guys should make it into the semis. I like their quarter draws. So if you find an odds of them to win the quarter, I'll take that too. I don't see that up yet, so I can't really take it. But give me a defending champion here with Humbert at 6-1. I like the price. Give me Hurkacz at 5-1, and that's it. I'm actually not going to take anybody else. I thought about taking some other guys. Can't take Medvedev at that price. Khachanov I thought about, but pretty tough draw with Korda in his quarter, and then facing off against Medvedev, and then maybe facing off against Hurkacz or Humbert. Pretty tough. A lot of good competition there. Same reason why I'm not taking Korda. Think that top half's pretty tough. Instead, I passed on it. I'll skip out on Khachanov. I'll skip out on Pericard, and I'll skip out on Korda. Give me the bottom half in what I think is the much weaker half. Give me the 2 best players there, in my opinion, with Hurkacz at 5-1 and Humbert at 6-1. Those will be my only outrights for Marseille. Sorry if you wanted some more long shots. I don't have any. Think that there are actually a lot of good players here on hard court, and it's pretty tough to find an angle, in my opinion. People would probably be tempted by Bonzi in the bottom half, but Sonego, I think, is a better option, in my opinion. I think Sonego, after making the deep run in the Australian Open, can prove that that was not a fluke and that he is a very solid hardcore player. He's coming to the net more. He's been very solid. I think Humbert would beat him, but if I had to pick one long shot, it would be Sonego at a pretty decent price. Actually, do I want to take Sonego at the last minute at around 25-1? You know what? I might actually talk myself into it. I think that there is some value for that price. He made the quarters of the Australian Open. Then he ended up losing to Rune in the first round of Rotterdam. Not the best of draws, to be honest, for him. Rune is a tough matchup in the first round. But you know what? I talked myself into it. I think Sonego at 25 to 1 is worth something. Pretty big price for, once again, a quarterfinalist in a Grand Slam on hard court about a month ago. I'll throw that in there at 25 to 1. Think those odds are pretty high. And I do like the actual half he's in. So I'll take that as well. So once again, the outrights for all the events that I just covered in the tournament, or in the tournaments, give me Zverev at 180, give me Musetti at 9 to 1, and give me Baez at 16 to 1 for Buenos Aires. For Delray, I'll go with Fritz at 190. I'll go with Giron at 12 to 1. I'll go with Kmanovic at 12 to 1 as well. For Marseille, I'll go with Hurkacz at 5 to 1, Humbert at 6 to 1, and Sonego at 25 to 1 is my super long shot. So that's going to wrap it up for the outrights. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. Before that, though, I want to remind once again that we are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, because if you want to try, once again, looking at some options post-Super Bowl, Underdog has the NBA, they have the NHL, college basketball, whatever sport you can cash in on. You can win big with Underdog Fantasy Pick'em. For the upcoming Pick'ems, you know what? Until Giannis comes back, I know he's out for a week and change, keep taking lower, higher assists or rebounds and assists. He's been great lately. I know he had 8 rebounds and 8 assists today. He had double-digit assists against the Hawks over the weekend on Friday. Give me the higher on lowered assists in the next game until Giannis comes back. A reminder, though, when you sign up for a new account, use the promo code SGPN to claim a special pick and first-time deposit offer up to 1K bonus cash. So a special pick and a first-time deposit offer up to 1K. Great deal there in bonus cash on fantasy promo code SGPN. We're also about to buy Rhythm. If you want to try betting models, Rhythm can help you do that, because Rhythm can help you build your own model. You can copy it from the leaderboard, or let Rhythm build one for you in seconds. So there are a couple ways to try out betting models. They have NFL picks, NFL props, college basketball, NBA, a bunch of other sports as well. Rhythm has you covered for all of it. If you want to try it out for free for a week, go to Sports.com's Rhythm, Sports.com, RITHMM. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Just finished previewing the outrights for Buenos Aires, Delray, and Marseille. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. Also see the comment section. See Leonard appreciating the show. Thank you. Same thing with Denny. Same thing with Brian. So once again, hopefully you all enjoyed the show. And hopefully, once again, you keep cashing outrights with us. Been a good couple of weeks here, 2025. Had a couple of outright wins with Monfils, with Felix, and with Alcaraz. We've done well so far this year. Sinner as well for the Australian Open. So hopefully keep it rolling here for the upcoming 3 events. Anyway, for the lock and dog, coincidentally, I'm going to go back to the late edition outright that I added in Sonego. I'll take him -1 at -115 as he takes on Dzanchop. Dzanchop, last time we saw him, lost a heartbreaker to Alcaraz in the first round of Rotterdam, which I know aged pretty well. However, Dzanchop tends to lose a lot of painful matches, and he's also been horrible in terms of recent win-loss record. He loses a lot of close matches, but he's lost 5 straight. He's been really bad lately. He has not won a singles match since November. So I think that Dzanchop was a bit overvalued after what just happened in the matchup against Alcaraz, which he lost. Sonego, though, made the quarters of the Australian Open, ended up facing off against Rune in the first round of Rotterdam, which is a really tough draw for him. I know Rune got his ass kicked by Martinez later on in the same event. Point is, though, Sonego had a very tough draw in his first match back off the layoff from the Australian Open. He had time to once again get acclimated. Thought he played fine against Rune, just fell a little bit short. So there's no shame in losing 7-6, 6-4. Think he'll look good here. Think he's better than Dzanchop, especially if he keeps coming to the net. I think that Sonego found a solid balance between aggression and control. I'd say control and also volleying skills. So I like the fact that Sonego has been more aggressive coming to the net. I like the forehand and think that his overall firepower can overpower Dzanchop at times. Plus, they actually faced off recently, faced off last year in Paris in October, and Sonego did win that one in 3. Was close, but Sonego was in bad form then. He's in much better form now, and I think that Dzanchop is still being a mess, losing 5 straight. So give me Sonego -1 here. The money line's -150, give or take, which I thought was pretty juicy. Give me the games instead at -115 for the -1 as my lock. For my dog, I am going to go with a classic clay matchup here between Comasagna and Navone. Give me the over 2.5 sets at +135. Now, Navone has been a clay guy that I've backed before. He's very solid, but main issue, he can't serve. So because of that, there are a lot of, I'd say, long matches and marathons he's involved in. Navone, though, I know it's hard court season, but still. Navone has lost at least 1 set in 13 straight matches. 4 of Navone's last 5 matches have not ended in straight sets. Now, Comasagna is kind of in the same boat. He's lost at least one set in 9 of his last 10 matches, and 7 of his last 10 matches have not ended in straight sets. So both guys are marathon men, and I see a very competitive war between these two guys. Now, it's also pretty crazy because both guys are Argentinian. They have faced off a ton in the past. Both guys are young. Keep that in mind. This will be the 11th head-to-head meeting between the two of them. They have faced off 10 times on clay before in their careers. They know each other very, very well. I believe the head-to-head is currently 6-4, I think. So it's very close. 10 career meetings before, all on clay, and each of the last 3 meetings did not end in straight sets. These guys kill each other in the head-to-head, and I think you're looking at a pretty common theme here, which is each guy dropping sets. 13 straight matches for Navone dropping a set, 9 of the last 10 for Comasani dropping a set, 4 of the last 5 for Navone did not end in straight sets, and 7 of the last 10 for Comasania did not end in straight sets. Point is, though, ton of head-to-head history supporting the over 2.5 sets, ton of recent form by both guys supporting the over 2.5 sets. Give me a marathon. I think each guy will have a moment, but I think based on, once again, the form of both guys, give me a marathon, which we have seen, historically speaking, quite frequently between these two guys. Give me history to repeat itself once again at plus 135 as my dog in that matchup. So once again, the plays here for the lock and dog. The lock's going to be on Sonego, -1 against the Zanchel at -115. That's games, by the way, so keep that in mind. For the dog, I'll go with Comasania and Navone over 2.5 sets at plus 135. That's wrap it up. We're back once again for the quarterfinals in Buenos Aires, Delray, and Marseille. Till next time, find me on Twitter, Reichel Radio. Find me on the NBA show. Find me on the MLB show. Find me on the W show as well. And a reminder, don't forget to support the show by leaving a like and subscribe to the actual channel. And don't forget to leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.